All right. I don't have a coin, so I can't give tzedakah at the moment. But there's a pushka behind me. If you have a tzedakah box at home, a pushka, please grab a coin or a bill and give tzedakah. Okay. For tonight's halacha, Rosh Hashanah. So we finished. We're moving on to the next chapter, Tov Kuf Pe Gimel 583, and this deals with the things that we are accustomed to eating on Rosh Hashanah. Okay, so the basis of this is a bit of Talmud in the book of Krisos, Tractate Krisos, page 6, side A. There's a statement from the sage Abaye. Abaye says that Yehe Adam Rogil. Okay, one second. Hashta de Simona Ba'almahi. He says, Yehe Rogil Inish Lemeichal Berei Shata, and so on and so forth. What does that mean in English? Now that we have established the relevant discussion in the Gemara over there, that a sign is a thing, that's a literal translation, that doing a certain action, a certain behavior, a certain thing, as an omen for positive outcome is a real thing in Judaism. It holds weight. So therefore, on Rosh Hashanah, Abaye says you should eat A, B, C, and D. He says lists off a certain amount of things that you should eat, and the Shulchan Aruch and the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch list off some of the things. For example, leeks and fenugreek is a type of vegetable. And there's each one has its own Yehi Ratzon, a certain short little prayer that goes along with that, asking and beseeching Hashem that the year should be one that is similar to the type of food that we are eating, in the positive sense. We're not getting into that. We're going to focus mainly on the apple. Why am I focusing mainly on the apple, not the previous things? Because in Chabad, our custom is not to do any of that, meaning to say these little prayers. I'm not aware of a particular custom to eat the particular foods listed in the beginning of this chapter. However, I'm going to go to the second half of the first law. The Alter Rebbe writes like this: V'yesh noihagim. There are those who are accustomed lechel tapuach mosuk metubel b'dvash, to eat a sweet apple dipped in honey. V'aimrim, and they say, when they eat it, they say, Tischadesh aleinu shanat musuka, that you, Hashem, you should renew upon us a sweet year. Okay? V'varech ala tapuach v'lei ala davash, and you should make a blessing, a bracha, on the apple, but not on the honey. Lefi shahadvash hu tofel la tapuach, because the honey is secondary to the apple. Let's open this up a bit. So, I'm sure we're all familiar with the famous song that was probably passed down since Moses on Har Sinai, on Mount Sinai, dip the apple in the honey. I'm sure they had a Hebrew version of it. But, I'm just kidding. It's a universal thing. The custom is to dip apple in the honey. So before we even go further, why an apple? Why not a peach or a plum or grapes? So there's a sage known as the Maharil. Actually, we'll get to the Maharil in a second. It says that one of the reasons why, what is the idea of an apple? It says there's a pasuk, there's a verse, the story when Jacob comes to his father Isaac. Isaac is blind, and Jacob wants the blessings that Isaac was thinking he was giving to his son Esav. Esav was not a positive person; he was a terrible witch of a person. And Jacob came undercover, dressed with like hairy skins, which Esav was very hairy, and he came in and to receive the blessings. And he felt his arm, and he said, "You must be my son Esav." So Isaac, the father, he says, he points out that he says that the scent that you walked in with is like the scent of the field. And the Talmud explains that it's like the scent of the field of apples. So there's a significance to apples. But besides for this, going back to the Maharil says that this refers to a specific kind of apple, a spiritual apple, called the Chakal Tapuchin Kadishin, the holy apple orchard, which is a godly concept, godly level, and is, as the Rebbe explains in a letter, it is referring to the level of Malchus. Among the 10 Sephiros, it's the lowest of the 10 Sephiros, the level of Sephira of Malchus of the world of Atzilus. And this is associated specifically with Rosh Hashanah, because in Rosh Hashanah, you have to go learn Chassidus on Rosh Hashanah to understand what I'm saying, but there is a rebuilding of the level of Malchus. So we specifically eat an apple for this reason. I want to point out that the Shulchan Aruch says to eat tapuach masik, to eat a sweet apple dipped in honey, which itself is sweet. So green apples, that's not the best way to go about it. Green apples are pretty sour usually. A sweet apple, you want like a nice sweet Honeycrisp or whatever is your favorite sweet apple. Interestingly, the Shulchan Aruch says to say Tischadesh Aleinu Shana Masuka, the little prayer that goes along with it. We say that you should renew upon us a sweet year, but practically, we'll see soon about the practically, but just a little more. But at least in a nutshell, we add another word there. We say Tischadesh Aleinu Shana Toiva u'Masuka, a good and sweet year, not just a sweet year. When I say we, I'm saying this is the Chabad custom. Others may have a different custom. We make a blessing, says the Alter Rebbe in the Shulchan Aruch, we make a blessing on the apple, not the honey, because the honey is secondary to the apple. When it comes to the laws of blessings, when you make blessings on food, every food that you eat, as long as it's kosher, has a blessing that goes associated with it. Okay? There's a blessing that's for cake and cookies and cereal. There's that's a borei minei mezonos. Borei minei mezonos in my accent. There's the blessing for vegetables, a blessing for fruits, and a blessing for everything else. Is a blessing for wine and for bread. They'll have unique blessings. So what if you have an example? Let's go to the example of cereal. Yeah, cereal is the blessing on the cereal is borei minei mezonos. One that creates different sustenances. If you have a bowl of cereal, you actually have two foods in the bowl. You have cereal and you have milk. Milk is a different blessing. Milk is shahakol ne'abedvari, which is the blessing that covers all the rest. So which one do you make? So there's a rule in these laws, it's called ikar and tafel. There's the main one and there's the secondary. When you're eating a bowl of cereal, the main thing that you're eating is the cereal. So you're making a borei minei mezonos. Not all cereal, by the way, is this blessing. I'm just using an example of a cereal that is this blessing. But you almost ignore the milk, because the milk is secondary. If it's secondary, you don't make a blessing on it when these two foods are mixed together. So when you have an apple that's dipped in honey, so again, the Maharil brought in the Magen Avram, who was the commentary on the original Shulchan Aruch, and the Alter Rebbe is ruling like this, that there is room to say that you should make when you're dipping an apple in honey, and there are two different blessings. Apple is a berei pri ha'etz, the one who creates the fruit of the tree. And honey is the bracha of shahakol ne'abedvari, which is the one that goes on all the rest of the foods. So which blessing do you make? Make two blessings maybe? So there's room to say that you should make a blessing on the apple, because it's the main thing, seemingly. And there's also room to say that you should make a blessing on the honey, because the main focus is the honey, seemingly. So the Maharil brought in the Magen Avram rules that we make a blessing only on the apple, and the honey is considered secondary. Why? Because every time this idea is mentioned in the works of Halacha of Jewish law, it always says it in an expression of you dip the apple into the honey, and you eat an apple dipped in honey. It doesn't say you eat honey with an apple. If it would have said you eat honey with an apple, it would have implied that honey is the main thing, and you also eat an apple with it, because it's hard to, I guess, you eat just honey with a spoon, I don't know. But it doesn't say that. It says you eat an apple, that's the main thing, dipped in honey. So we make a blessing specifically only on the apple and not on the honey. That was in law number 1. Skipping ahead to law number 4, because number 4 is connected. We can get to number 4 in a second. One important point. In the Shulchan Aruch, it basically says that here's the order of events. When do we eat the apple and honey? We eat the apple and honey at the beginning of the meal on the first night of Rosh Hashanah. The beginning of the meal, meaning you make kiddush on a cup of wine. You go wash your hands for bread. You sit down, you make hamotzi on the bread, and then after you finish eating your bread, the first thing you have is the apple dipped in honey. Okay? If you look strictly in the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch, what you'll walk away with is that the order of events with the actual eating of the apple is you take a piece of apple, you dip it in the honey, you make the blessing of the apple, B'er Pri Ha'etz, you eat a bite of it, and then you say the special little prayer associated with it, which is Yehi Ratzon Mefonecha Shetischadash Aleinu Shana Tova. You should renew upon us a good and sweet year. So the prayer comes after you take a bite. Why? Because you can't say the prayer between the blessing and the biting, because that's considered an interruption. When you make a blessing on food, you have to make the blessing and eat. You're not supposed to interrupt in between. If you make it an interruption, you have to make a new blessing. Okay? So therefore, you make a blessing, you eat the apple, take a bite, and then you say the special prayer associated with with the apple and the honey. That is what it says in Shulchan Aruch. Practically, we spoke about before that the Alter Rebbe wrote his Siddur, his prayer book, after writing the Shulchan Aruch, and he writes certain laws in his Siddur, and we follow what it says in the Siddur. Practically, if there's a difference between what it says in Shulchan Aruch and what it says in the Siddur, we follow what it says in the Siddur. So it says in the Alter Rebbe Siddur and in the book, the little tiny book called Hayom Yom, which is records many customs, Chabad customs, and this is compiled by the Rebbe. It says that we make the blessing on the apple dipped in honey, and then before we take a bite, we say the special prayer, and then we take a bite. Why? What happened to the interruption? I thought this is an interruption. You can't make an interruption. So this is explained in a letter of the Rebbe in volume 3 of the Rebbe's letters, which is a big set of, right up to 34, I think, volume number 34 of the Rebbe's letters. Volume number 3, letter number 504. You can look it up yourself. It's not in English, but if you have the ability to look it up and read the halachic explanation why we do this, that we make a blessing, then the prayer, then we take a bite, even though seemingly it's interruption, go look over there. I would explain it myself, but I did not have the opportunity to go look it up myself. So I don't know what the reasoning is, but that's where it is. Last thing is somewhat connected, which is in law number 4. It says, prusas bidvash. I'm not going to read the rest of it. He talks about eating pomegranates as well, but what we just said is there are those who are accustomed to dip a piece of hamaitzi, a piece of bread, the challah that we eat on Rosh Hashanah, to dip that in honey as well, not just the apple. I'll read the whole thing also, but it doesn't say it here, but it says it says in the Siddur that we do this. Oh, I'm sorry, it doesn't say it in the Siddur. But the practical custom in Chabad is that we eat every time we dip, every time we have bread on Challah, on Shabbos and Yom Tov, from Rosh Hashanah all the way till Hoshana Rabbah. Okay, that's the 6th day of Sukkot. Sukkos. So that's what it's like. It's almost 3 weeks. It is 3 weeks actually. Those 21 days, you actually you dip the bread into the honey every single time you're having the bread, not just on Rosh Hashanah. And the rest of the law is there are those who eat pomegranates on Rosh Hashanah, and they say our merits should increase like a pomegranate. In Chabad, we eat a pomegranate, but we don't say any of the prayers associated with the different fruits and different foods on Rosh Hashanah. We only say it on the apple. There's also the idea of eating a head of an animal, a ram, or a fish, which we do as well, but we don't say any particular prayer. Only on the apple we say the prayer. Don't confuse prayer with blessing. You make a blessing on... Okay, I'm going to get to that right now. And then he says, we are accustomed to eat fatty meat and sweet and to drink honey, and to eat and drink all types of sweet things, in order that this year should be a sweet and fat year. So it says in the book of Ezra, eat fatty things and drink sweet things. And with that, I wish us all a good and sweet year, and we'll see you actually Thursday night, I believe, if I'm mistaken. Possibly Wednesday night, we'll see. 8:05. We're on the WhatsApp chat 8:10, but I meant to say 8:05. Okay, l'chaim.